Hey photographers, welcome to the Bokeh Podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Holritz, and really I'm just here to help you build a sustainable photography business. That certainly means helping you improve your photographic skills and enabling you to become a stronger business owner, but it also means helping you work more efficiently so you don't get burnt out in the long run. We are sponsored by photographersedit.com, custom photo editing for the professional photographer, and Miilu.com, that's MIILU.com, the simplest way to create and manage timelines and shot lists for the events you're photographing. All right, let's get into today's episode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're back for another episode of the Bokeh Podcast. I'm going to break the fourth wall here for a second. I haven't actually recorded a podcast episode in about 3 weeks. We had so many in the queue. I was able to take a bit of a break, but I am back now after about 3 weeks, and I get to interview somebody that I've known in the industry actually for a long time. Tracy Moore is here with us. Thanks for hanging out with me today, Tracy.
Oh, thanks for having me. So excited.
Well, and you already kind of bring a certain level of energy in our interaction in person and then in this conversation already, which I think is great. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I think there's just something really wonderful about intentionally, and I know that that type of energy, excitement comes natural for some people. It doesn't always for me, but I like to throw that into conversation. I think people respond well to that. You bring that, so thank you for that. It makes my job easier.
Awesome. Happy to entertain. I've chugged all my coffee, so should be good to go and hyped up for you.
That's cool. So we're going to bring that for everybody. We also have, and again, breaking kind of the fourth wall here, I noticed Tracy posted the stories about our interview before we got started. And I happened to take a look at it. It looks like she's got the exact same audio setup. So between the two of us today, we should have some really great audio for everybody listening in. Tracy, take me back because actually I can't honestly remember the first time that we met. We've known each other or known of each other for years. We've seen each other at various conferences and workshops and that kind of thing. Yeah. Do you even remember the first time we connected?
Man, I don't. I have no idea. I mean, it was definitely at a conference.
Yeah.
But I can't recall either. That's so fun. I get asked that quite a bit, and I'm always like, I have no idea. Just remember that you're awesome, and it's always fun running into you. But maybe it was at a WPPI.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was WPPI.
So we have a lot of mutual friends. I just remember somebody introducing me, and they were like, "This guy's awesome," and runs all these cool things. And, yeah.
Well, you're propping me up very nicely, but I'm trying to think of what did we go to Pictage? Did you go to any of the Pictage conferences?
Yeah,
back in the day,
definitely.
That may have been one of the first places that we connected. For anybody listening in who isn't familiar with Pictage really kind of led the way as far as online galleries and online sales for prints for the longest time. And sadly, they kind of fell off the bandwagon, if you will. But that was, not only was it a great product that we utilized for years in my photography business, but it was really an amazing community, actually.
Such a good community.
Yeah, and that was probably where we connected initially, was maybe one of those conferences. Anyway.
Yeah, I think so.
So Tracy is a photographer, and that's probably pretty obvious at this point for anybody listening in, but Tracy, just do a brief intro for us. Tell us a little bit about where you're based and what type of photography you're specializing in.
Yeah, so I'm in Billings, Montana currently. Travel all over the place though. And for the past 10 years, I guess, I've been specializing in high school senior girls. I think most people have that in their areas, but I know there's some parts of the country and the world where people don't even do that. So when I say that, they're like, wait, seniors, like old people? I'm like, no, high school seniors. It's a big deal out here, especially in this neck of the woods. And I just really love working with teen girls. I always have. My husband and I were youth leaders back in the day. I grew up in like the young life and wildlife eras and just really appreciated having, just strong, confident, motivated women around me. And I feel like they really helped shape who I was. And so when I was kind of dreaming up my career, I thought it'd be really cool to work with teens. And I also loved photography and I loved traveling. And so I just whipped them all up into one business. And I worked with a coach, Jeff Yoakum, Jeff.
Yeah.
And I was kind of stuck between weddings and seniors and a couple other things, and just really wanted to hone in on my niche and learn the value of specializing. And I ended up going with teen girls and never looked back, and it's amazing. And now I've kind of gone more the coaching direction. Well, not more. I'm pretty much half and half because I love what I do so much. And I think it's really fun and rewarding to help other women grow their businesses and just show them the ropes, because it can be a really tricky business and feel kind of lonely. And so I wanted to help build a community for them. But yeah, it's been a decade of craziness, fun adventures with these girls, and I love it.
When I saw a recent post of yours on Instagram, and by the way, for everybody listening in, you can follow Tracy at Tracy, Tracy, and then Moore, Moore photo, Tracy Moore photo on Instagram. Of course, we'll link to that in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. But a recent post of yours, Tracy, October 7th, this really fun little video where you talk about how 11 years ago you were daydreaming of like what your life could look like, what a career could look like.
Yeah.
And ultimately you decided to create that thing. And I think there's something super exciting and powerful and enabling and all the words when it comes to the reality, I think, and certainly I've experienced this for myself, which is you decide that you want to do something, you set your mind to it, you put the time, the effort, the energy into it, and you can accomplish it. We live in a really cool place in 2020 where we have the freedom and the tools to be able to do something like that. And I have to not only give you props for having the dream and going for it, but ultimately being able to sustain it this long too.
Yeah. It hasn't been easy along the way, but it's totally worth it. And I think it's pretty incredible how we can build the business we want. And I think we just get sucked into this world of seeing what other people are doing. And if they're happy, we should do that to be happy. And that's just really not the case. I think it's there's so much more out there. And if you're around the right people and hiring the right people and just really thinking about where your passion comes from and how you're different and what you really want out of life and create that instead of, in the beginning, I remember doing that, looking at other photographers and saying, oh, they're successful and they're doing this, I should do that probably. And you just don't get as much fulfillment. And so when you really do a deep dive into who you are and what you're passionate about and create something around that, it is so much more fulfilling. I think you'll be so much more successful and you really can create a life that you love and a career that you really love.
Yeah, I was listening to a recent interview. In fact, I'm in the process of listening to a recent interview of Kanye West by a favorite podcaster of mine. His name is Joe Rogan. I know there are going to be mixed opinions on actually both these guys, Joe and Kanye. But one of the things about and Kanye in particular, and frankly, I started the episode and I turned it off relatively quickly because I was like, this guy is all over the place. But one of the things that, in fact, Joe actually did in the interview was literally take that phrase and say, people say that you're all over the place. What is that about? Like, why is it that? Because he's like, I'm listening to you, I don't hear anything crazy. And the point, kind of summed up, that Kanye made was people have these expectations. Society has this expectation that we have to be this particular thing, that we have to fit into this particular mold. Yeah. And basically, I've chosen not to do that. I have the freedom to make that choice.
Yes, he has.
and he has, again, on a level which I know is going to cause a lot of disagreement. And that's really not the reason I'm bringing him up. I just thought that particular line of thought was quite fascinating and compelling. And ultimately, I've seen it in my life. And I know that you have too. You're an example of it, Tracy. And I think that we can encourage everybody that's listening in to take at least one or two steps forward, even today. Those ideas that you have in your head that you're like, oh, I'm not sure. Give it a shot. Take that step. Make the move. Because we can think about it all day long. Nothing's going to ever come from that. Make the move. Make it happen. And we're certainly going to be here to encourage you along the way. Tracy, you mentioned, of course, that senior girls are your specialty. You're photographing senior girls. And it's funny that you mentioned the senior thing and having to clarify that we're talking about high school seniors. My daughter, who is just super sweet, I was taking her to school this morning. She's 15, sophomore in high school. Yeah. And she knew that I had a podcast interview, and she was like, so who are you interviewing? So I was telling her a little bit about you, Tracy, and your specialty. And it's funny, I found myself, even in that conversation, clarifying that I was talking about senior girls, that you photograph senior, high school seniors versus the older population.
Yep.
But when it comes to a brand position, I'm looking at your site, tracymorephotography.com, and brand position is something we talk a lot about here on the podcast, because especially in 2020, when on a daily basis, we're all kind of inundated with digital noise. I think it's important to have a really clear position statement and message to go along with that enables us to be able to stand out amongst that noise. Your brand position statement's pretty clear on your homepage. It's very simply troublemaker photographer for adventurous senior girls. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. So when we were doing kind of the deep dive, when I was mentoring with Jeff, we were just really thinking about what makes me different and what my, unique proposition is. And I've always just kind of been a prankster and a troublemaker in a good way. And I think that that's fun for high school girls to kind of relate to that and realize that you don't always have to fit into a mold and you can be your silly, crazy self. And everyone likes getting in like a good, fun amount of trouble. And I feel like I allow them to do that. And I believe that adventures and being brave really helps with confidence. And so I try to create experiences that give them the option to be brave. And I've jumped off cliffs with my seniors. We've gone longboarding. We've traveled to Thailand and California and just all over the place. And I just really always want to create experiences that they'll be excited to talk about and tell stories about, and just giving them that opportunity to be brave and gain that confidence and help them just be their silly, regular selves and not have to worry about, being like everybody else. And so I use that in my brand. And at first I was like, troublemaker, that's such a, I don't know, I feel like parents might not love that, but it really connects with the girls. And I think parents actually do love it because they realize that it's not bad trouble. It's just the right amount to make it fun and interesting and connect with these girls and give them really cool opportunities to hang out with other girls. We've built a whole little tribe of girls every year that get together, and we do, like just last night, I had a couple girls over carving pumpkins and, just giving them really cool opportunities to have fun and explore this crazy world and life.
And you use the word we. Do you have a tendency of going on these ventures with a group of seniors versus individuals, specifically for the sake of photography or photographing the sessions? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it just depends. We've done a lot of crazy things. So I do a contest every year for the girls. It's called the Do Good Contest, and I try to encourage giving back because I also think that's a really simple way to feel better in life and to boost confidence and happiness is doing something for others. That's what I've found. Obviously it's good to do nice things for other people, but sometimes it feels a little selfish even because you're like, I feel so good doing this that, it's just a win-win. Everyone feels good.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to create a kind of a contest for them because these girls work very well for bribes as well. They're high schoolers. And so we have a whole little list of crazy random acts of kindness they can do. And so I take one of the girls, whoever wins, she gets to take her best friend on a trip. So we've gone to California a couple times. I took a group to Vegas, which was really a crazy adventure, taking, teenagers to Vegas, but it was amazing. And then last year we did our first international trip and we went to Thailand, which was a crazy thought. And I was like, these girls' parents, are they going to let me take them to Thailand? This is nuts. But I really was thinking about what helped me gain confidence in life. And it all came back to the first time that I went to Africa. It was all by myself. I had to learn so much about passports and visas and new languages and the way other people live and just appreciating my life. And it was a whole really cool life-changing moment for me. So I wanted to help provide that for these girls and show them the craziness and passion for travel. And so, I mentioned it to some of the parents and they were in. So we took 6 girls to Thailand, and it was a crazy, fun experience. Wow. I didn't want to make it easy for them, and I didn't want to make it comfortable. This was not a vacation. So we stayed in some crazy places, no 5-star resorts. I had them vote on what they wanted to do and who they wanted to help when we were there. And so we volunteered at an elephant sanctuary.
Wow.
And kind of helped with that. We worked with the schools a little bit, and then we learned about marine conservation. So it was a crazy experience, but again, it's just all coming back to helping them boost their confidence, and crazy ideas sometimes work. So if you have a crazy thought, just roll with it. Sometimes mine work out, sometimes they fail miserably, but you're never going to know until you try. So hopefully I gave these girls a little bit of confidence and some love of travel and appreciation for the way that we get to live,
Oh man, yeah. Well, and speaking of experience, this is really a great segue to my next question, actually. Because I, by the way, I know that we could spend a lot of time. I could dig into that whole experience that you do create for your seniors, and it could be probably multiple episodes in and of itself.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Let me go ahead and ask you though. This is a question that I like to ask most of our guests. It has to do with customer experience. And while it sounds like kind of a cliche topic, I still think that at the end of the day, even in 2020, despite this digital world that we live in, that we can probably most efficiently build businesses if we provide a really great experience. And you're doing just that. What would you say is the most important principle driving that notion of a wonderful customer experience?
Oh, my business is all about creating a customer experience. That is so important. And my number one tip would just be to be interested in them. Like I really focus on giving them their own experience so that they have a story to tell. And just always going the extra mile. So, to get people interested in you, you got to be interested in them. That's just an old school principle I've always loved. And yeah, I just really try to make it fun and different for their life and what they're needing and their passions and creating a really cool shoot and a really cool just experience for them to remember. And if you give them a good story to tell, they're going to tell people, and that just helps grow your business even more. So yeah, be interested in them and give them a really neat experience that's different.
It just reminds me, I'm in the process right now of reading a book that has to do with being a better conversationalist. And this particular author, this is a quote that I just read a few minutes ago, actually. He says specifically about conversation, a lot of times we have social interaction for social interaction's sake. That usually amounts to a bunch of nothing if you can't see clear purpose for talking to someone. But that's a mental construction you can easily change in a variety of ways. And here's the tagline, if you will. One of the best ways to do this is to be curious about them in general. And that's so compelling to me, largely because I've had that experience, and it doesn't happen very often, but I've been on the other side of an interaction with somebody who genuinely seems curious, who genuinely seems interested. Yeah. And by the way, this is a book for anybody who's curious. It's called The Art of Witty Banter by Patrick King, and we'll link to it in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. But I think it is, if nothing else, especially for those listening in who would claim to be introverts, which I know is a lot of photographers in our industry, if you're going to have a conversation with somebody that you don't know, go to learn something about anything that they might be able to offer to a conversation that you don't know anything about. Set them up to educate you. If you're genuinely curious going into that conversation, it will drive a certain, I guess, curiosity, if you will, a sense of curiosity from the other person's standpoint, that you really want to get to know them. You want to get to know about them. And to Tracy's point, ultimately, hopefully have the opportunity to some way invest in their lives as well. But I'd love that you highlight this. Is this something that you learned over time? Did you have a similar experience that I did where you got to interact with somebody who was like that, made you feel good, and you're like, I've got to give other people this? What was the process for you?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think this was one of your questions for later. A book. I'm obsessed with the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yes.
By Dale Carnegie. And I think my dad gave me that book when I was like 10 and was like, read this.
Wow.
It'll change your life. And so I read it like every year because, you start to just live normal life again and get a little selfish and forget that, you got to be interested in other people sometimes. Yeah. And so I think it just gets me back to, people are really cool. Like, go talk to them, be interested in them. We all have our own lives, and nobody really digs in and asks us these things. And so I think that's just such an important lesson in life, and just being interested. That's it. Like, just look at them like, hey, you have your whole own life. You have so many stories that I don't know. You have so many memories and experiences that made you who you are. So let's talk about them. And I want to know more, and what you struggle with and what you love. And that just really creates a good bond. And people love getting asked about themselves and answering questions and kind of having people dig into their lives, because it just doesn't happen, sadly, as much as it probably should. So I just really try to go back to principles of that book and just make people feel special and loved, because it's not as common as it should be. So, and I fail a lot of that. Sometimes I'm like, oh, did I just have a whole conversation? I didn't even ask about them. That was so rude. What's wrong with me? So it's kind of like you got to practice it. And then all of a sudden it just kind of becomes a habit, and you just really, truly are interested in people. It's not a fake thing like, oh, I should ask about them so they like me more. It's like, absolutely. No, you look at it like you're really cool, and I want to know more about you. So tell me. And it creates really cool conversations and great friendships and experiences. So
you're right that it's unusual. Like, you and I have been to countless photography conferences at this point in our career. And, one of the things that happens, unfortunately, is you go to a conference and of course, you have conversations with hundreds of people. And most of those conversations are super, super surface level. People are kind of robotically repeating the same questions and answers over and over and over and over again. And you sense it right away. And I so crave real conversation where I do sense genuine interest from the other person. And even if it is only going to be a 2-minute conversation, if they come up, give me a bear hug, and actually look me in the eyes and ask me questions about my kids or something a bit more personal in nature, where, like you said, it shows a genuine curiosity. Oh, it just makes all the difference in the world. And I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the most impactful experiences I had being on the other side of somebody who was who showed that kind of interest was, he was actually the husband of a local photographer here in the Chattanooga area. And we would go to these photographer get-togethers, and he would come to them with his wife, and we'd sit down across from each other and near each other, and he would look me in the eyes, and he would ask, Nate, how is it? And again, we talk about that energy, carry that energy in the tone of his voice as well. Nate, how are things going? Tell me about this. The last time that we talked, you mentioned this thing, but tell me about this. So I would answer him. And then once I give him that response, he wouldn't just say, "Oh, okay, that's cool," and move on. It was, "Oh, that's okay. That's really interesting. So when you say this, do you mean this, or how did you do this?" And he would continue to dig, and I just felt like $1,000,000 because nobody talks to you that way anymore. And so, I think again, to your point, to bring it back around, it is so important that we do show that genuine curiosity. We initially bring an energy to the conversation where that person actually feels like we're interested. And then we ask questions that go beyond the surface level, and that will further demonstrate that curiosity. I think it really does set us all up to provide a wonderful customer experience for
sure.
our clients. That's huge. That's really great. Okay. So talk to me about time. You've got what seems like a pretty successful business, but you also have a family, and I'm curious how you're balancing this, what balance even looks like to you. How do you manage your time?
Balance is sorcery. It's a myth. I mean, some days I feel like I kill it. Some days I just, want to like crumple up in a ball and just cry because I feel like I'm failing miserably. So there's just some tricks that I've picked up along the way that most of the time I can do all right with this, but it's tough. It's really tough being like a full-time worker and career woman. And my husband's a stay-at-home dad, and I provide and work my butt off. And I think what really helps is delegating a ton of stuff so that I really can have more time, but then also being fully present with whatever I'm doing. So I kind of made that rule because my husband made a comment that just like hit me to the core. And he was like, "Well, I feel like, you've been here, but you haven't really been here, like you're here, but I can tell your mind's somewhere else." And I was like, "Oh, I do not want to be that wife or that mom." And, that was a while ago. And so ever since then, I'm like, okay, if I'm with my husband or if I'm with the kids, like I'm with them. I'm putting my phone away. I would rather just give them, an hour or two of just solid, amazing mom time and hanging out and giving them my all instead of 3 or 4 hours of, I'm stressed, I'm returning messages, I'm like nodding my head, but not really paying attention. And so I just delegate time and days where, I don't work certain days at all. And that's for family. And we try to take a lot of trips. And so I might have 4 full days of them and then work for the next 6. Like it always depends. As you know, being a photographer, your schedule is not always the same. So what's really helped is just time blocking. And then I learned this method of kind of planning your time a little better called the Eisenhower Method. Have you heard of that?
I think I've heard of it, but tell me more.
Yeah, it's like old school. You basically have a poster board or whatever, a piece of paper with 4 boxes. Okay. And you first just start with a brain dump. So you just write all the stuff down you have to do, all the to-dos, all the things that have been on your mind, just everything. And then you kind of separate them into those 4 sections. So there's urgent and important, or urgent and not important, important and non-urgent, and not important and not urgent.
Yes.
And so you, if it's not important and non-urgent, you either don't do it or you for sure delegate that stuff out. If it's important and urgent, you know that you need to get that done ASAP. And so it just helps your brain kind of categorize these to-dos. And then I just go through my schedule and kind of put these to-dos, at least a few a day, on my schedule so that I know that I'm going the right way, doing the right stuff, and making my time really just effective and being super productive when I am working. Because you can get super distracted. I'll be working and then pop on Instagram, and then somebody will send me a Facebook message, and then I'll get a phone call, and then it's just all over the place. So delegating and that method has really helped, I think.
So this actually, now that you started explaining, I'm remembering we talked about this on the podcast before, and I want to ask the same question I did. We talked about it with at least one, maybe 2 different guests. Do you feel like at any point having 4 different categories to have to sort everything that you're considering through at times can overcomplicate the process versus, just say on the other extreme, just saying, here's my to-do list. These are the things I needed to get done. I check them off. They're done. Because part of the reason I asked this is because I've had the experience being a little bit of a organization nerd myself, to where I've spent, endless amounts of time, for example, looking for task and project management software that I felt was the best possible option. And the irony in that is I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours doing that, while I could have just been going and getting the things done. So where's the balance between kind of having a fancy process and just getting things done?
I totally agree. And I've done that as well. And this one just seemed to stick. I think it's just finding how your brain works. Okay. And for me, just having a ridiculous list stressed me out more because I was like, I don't even know where to start. What's most important? What do I do? Should I delegate some of this? And, I've had multiple different processes. But last year I was a part of a mastermind and one of the girls talked about this. And so I just have it on a big poster board and I have a whole running to-do list on top where everything's listed out. And then I have Post-its of all of the tasks and just 4 boxes. And when I'm done, I chuck the Post-it, or if it's urgent now, I move it over to that box. And it just really helps keep it moving and keeping my eye on what is really urgent and important at the moment. Because my mind is all over the place. I definitely have crazy ADD and that's a fact. I mean, I take Adderall for sure. So it just helps keep my brain in check and it works for me. It might not work for everybody, but I feel like everyone just needs to try some stuff out. If you can do just one to-do list, awesome. But I need a little bit more accountability and a visual board to kind of keep that all in check because there's just so much going on.
No, I love it. And just to be clear, I wasn't minimizing the process or the approach. Just kind of curious too to understand. I'm always, for sure. I have certain processes and I love conversation where I get to ask others about theirs and then they share theirs and then I'm like, oh, maybe that's a better way. And so it's nice.
What's your process? How do you do it?
Yeah. Oh, for me personally, I use a system called Todoist, and usually what I'll do is as you were talking about, kind of dump the list of things that need to get done into the system. They get categorized into projects, and then those projects, those tasks, certain tasks will have due dates, which kind of push the tasks into today. So when I go to look at open that software, it immediately pops up the today screen. What's due today? The things that need to be done today, and that's kind of the immediate list that I work from.
That's awesome.
Theoretically. But again, like you said,
now I'm like, oh crap, now I need that. Oh no.
Yeah, there's so many different ways. At the end of the day, we do need to go with the thing that works for us.
Yeah, we need to do it. Yeah. Also, if you're taking that much time, just get something done. It's so easy to procrastinate and just be like, well, wait, but I need to first recreate my whole iPhone on that new software. Now I can make it look really pretty. So let's spend 3 hours doing that so that I feel better, so that I can get more done. Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, you mentioned something in that conversation, though, or in that part of our conversation, delegation. And this is something we also talk about quite a bit here on the podcast. Because, honestly, aside from hoping to bring some type of valuable content for photographers, wedding portrait photographers, commercial photographers in our industry, one of the things that I also want to do beyond just talking about how to run a business and shoot a pretty picture is how to create freedom and flexibility for ourselves as business owners, because it's one thing to, work 80 hours a week and make a few $100,000 a year, but just not have no life, get burnt out, lose relationships. That's no fun. So how can we have a bit of both? And so that's why we talk a lot about this idea of efficiency, and certainly delegation is a part of that. What do you delegate in your business?
Everything I can. I definitely am a big fan of outsourcing and delegating. And I went to this conference a while back. Wasn't a photography one, but do you know a woman named Shalene Johnson?
No, I don't.
Oh my gosh, she's hilarious. She's awesome. Okay. I feel like I am her. And she is just hilarious. She's an amazing mom. She has a son and a daughter. And just really wants to be a mom first, but also runs an incredible, hugely successful business. And I actually got to stand up and ask her a question at this conference. And I just asked her about balance. And then I actually got to talk to her afterwards. I waited around like a stalker and just stared and waited till nobody was around her. And I was like, I gotta just try and meet her and say hi. And so, I was like, hey, okay, so I feel like I'm you, when you were 33, what would you go tell yourself, building this business, being a mom? And she was like, outsource, delegate, have freedom, build the life you want, be there for your kids. You're a mom first, and you can also run an amazing business, but you got to hire stuff out.
Yeah.
And so I even started hiring more out because I thought I was doing a great job. But she had this whole spiel about how laundry was her go-to distraction when she knew she had a big task. That was like her getaway. Like, oh, well, I better go fold some more laundry or better go do all these loads of laundry. And so she hired out just her laundry. And it like changed the game. Just something so simple that we just don't like doing. It's such a time suck. And whenever you want to get out of something, that's your go-to. And so we hired a house cleaner because that was always like something stressful and something on the back of my mind. I should do this. I should do this. And also just hate cleaning and I don't really do it very much. So that just helped our marriage as well. But as far as business, I outsourced editing, emails, scheduling, invoicing, ordering, packaging, a lot of my designing and writing. I even had somebody start making TikToks for me, just all kinds of stuff that is just a time suck that I feel like I just need to be the one taking pictures, communicating with all these people and possible clients and past clients on social media, really doing the marketing stuff because that's what I love and that's what I'm good at. And just, keeping my eye on my passions and what I love so that I can have freedom. Like my idea of success is freedom and peace. Like if I could feel peace every day and feel freedom, I think that's my idea of success. It's definitely not the amount of money I make. It's how I'm living my life. And so, I outsource and delegate so much and it has made it amazing. And whenever my assistant goes out of town or leaves, I realize how much she saves my life and how amazing it is. So I always tell people, even in the beginning, when I'm mentoring somebody or when they're in my mastermind, I'm like, make a list of things you're good at, make a list of things you hate or you're not so good at, and delegate all of that. And even in the beginning, because they're always like, oh, well, I can't afford that. That's crazy. I'm like, no, you shockingly really can. Like, just start with little bits at a time, delegate one thing. And that time you save from not doing that, go build your business and go get out there and let people see you and create these experiences for them. And you will be so much more successful and love your life so much more. So I feel like it creates better impact and income, just figuring out what you need to delegate. It's an amazing thing. And I feel like everyone needs to start quick and they'll realize that real fast.
Well, and I'm curious, you mentioned actually before we started recording that you delegate your editing to your assistant. And whether it's editing or anything else, one of the most challenging things I think for most people, myself included, by the way, and I happen to own an editing company, so it's a bit ironic, but it's not only learning to, a lot of people say, well, I can't give up control, but it's not, I think that might be a mask in some cases for other issues. And I think one of those potential issues is the fact that it doesn't come natural for a lot of people to communicate what it is that they want to someone else in order to get the thing accomplished, at least in a similar way to the way that they would normally do this particular task. When it comes to editing, that's particularly true. And I'm curious, how did you learn how to communicate effectively what you wanted to your assistant so she could do a good job?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely letting go of like ego and control and things like that, which seems so tricky at first. And then also just realizing that our clients don't notice as much as we think they would. Okay. So I had a conversation with my husband about this and I was like, but they'll know that it's going to change. It's not going to be exactly like I wanted it. Like I had Steph run my first round of editing and I kind of just walked through a whole Lightroom, catalog with her and then showed her how I cull them, how I, choose them, how I edit, all of that stuff. And then bringing them into Photoshop, showing her, take blemishes out, use these actions, things like that. And then the first go around, I mean, they looked good, but I was like, oh, well, I probably wouldn't have done that. And I might have not chosen that picture over this one. Yeah. And Matt's like, send it to your client, see what they say. And I was like, what? He's like, go for it. See if they notice anything different. I bet you they won't. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. He's like, do it. You need to save time. This is your goal. So I sent it to the client. They're like, we're so obsessed with the pictures. You're amazing. Oh my God. Just freaking out. And I was like, holy cow. They really just don't care. They don't notice those tiny little tweaks. And I've talked to photographers about that. And some are like, oh yes, I do. I can't give up my art. That's crazy. And that's okay. Like I'm different at as far as that thinking goes, because I've never been one to super, super focus on every single picture and making it award worthy. And that's just not my thing. But I so appreciate photographers that, appreciate art and love their art that much. That's their main thing and what they're known for. I'm just not. I know that I'm not the best photographer for sure. Like my skies are blown out a lot. But I'm giving the clients an experience they love, and they love the pictures. And I had to get over that real fast. Like if I'm giving them something that they love and they're so excited about these pictures, I can't care what every other photographer is going to think, because that's going to hold me back from posting and living the life that I want and providing this experience for the clients. So again, we're all just different, and you got to build a business the way you love. But I sat with her and trained her and had to give up that control. And I still edit stuff that I post a lot. I'll edit a few pictures from each session. But sometimes I don't. And that's okay. I've just had to get over the fact that perfectionism, it's never really been a thing of mine. So I don't have to struggle with that too much, but giving up that control was an issue at first, until I realized that nobody cares. And the only people that might care are other photographers, and they weren't my clients, and they weren't paying my bills. So I just had to go with what worked for me. And then I just started giving her little tasks more and more. She started taking over my email, scheduling, invoicing, ordering. And I was like, this is addicting. What else can I hire out? This is so fun. And so, it's just, like I said, letting go of that ego and that control. And I mean, that's up to you. If you want to live a life stuck behind a computer editing because you need that control, then you're probably going to burn out pretty quick and maybe not enjoy your life as much. But if you want to gain back some of that freedom and happy life, then I would suggest outsourcing stuff you don't love. If you love editing, awesome, outsource everything else. But if you don't, then figure it out. Just go for it.
Well, I have to, first of all, what you're saying about the process of delegation, what's behind it, and ultimately what it enables, I think is just spot on. Where I have to give you a hard time and push back is you're like talking yourself down like you're not a great photographer. And we're going to actually prove otherwise. We'll link to this particular post from October 8th, again, in your Instagram account, where you posted a few from recent sessions. And my word, I mean, you've got stunning work, Tracy. So let's not minimize.
Aww.
And in fact, I think maybe just to be really clear for everybody listening in, this isn't, delegation isn't only for people that don't consider themselves artists, to be really clear, because first of all, Tracy's work is gorgeous. But I think the point that you made, Tracy, and really the distinction that you made about photographers who are, for example, shooting for the sake of winning an award, we have to all keep in mind that the clients, who are the ones that are actually making us money, who are paying us and allowing us to make a living being a photographer, they're not the ones that are giving out those awards. Those awards are given by organizations and or other photographers. And so the way that we shoot and prep images for those particular instances certainly may be different, but the work that we're prepping for our clients should never be compromised as far as the quality that we're delivering. But it's the mindset, the mentality with which we approach the delivery of proof images, for example, for a client, for a gallery of, especially for wedding photographers that are delivering 600,000-800,000 images. The idea that we need to have every one of those images prepped like they're ready for some award ceremony or trying to win the most popular photographer award on Instagram, I think is ultimately getting in the way of us having the very thing that we're talking about, a free and flexible life. So
100%.
That differentiation, that distinction. Well, no, I want to encourage you first of all.
And I'm not trying to downplay I love my work. I think it's awesome. But as far as like winning competitions and lighting and all these perfect things, I know it's not that. And that's okay. I don't go for that. I don't have the time for that. And so, no, I'm not saying I'm a crap photographer. I love what I do and think I do a pretty good job, but I know I'm not the best, most award-winning, perfect, print ready, whatever. I just am trying to get across the point that worrying about that and trying to make every single picture perfect to win an award is going to hold you back, I feel. And so you just can't worry about what other people think. You just have to make sure you're giving your clients what they love. And that's where I think a lot of photographers struggle. I've heard from so many people that I mentor, like, well, it's not good enough. And what are other photographers going to think? And well, I messed up on this one. And I'm like, were your clients happy?
Right.
Like, yeah, they loved them. They posted them all. I'm like, that's literally all that matters. So don't worry about that.
Period. Full stop. Yeah. I'm glad you summed it up that way. You mentioned earlier, and we'll just touch on this briefly, the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And would you say that's kind of the most impactful self-help book or business book that you've read or listened to, or are there others you want to throw out as well?
Oh, there's so many. I'm like a self-help book nut. But that is definitely one I always come back to. I can always pick up and read. And it's really helped me, like just in random instances where I'll even come home and be like, oh my gosh, I Carnegie this person so hard. And that's like, what? I'm like, well, they were just kind of being like rude about something. And then I just started asking about them and like, asking them about like they must be an artist if they like criticize my work like that. And instead of just being like, well, that was rude, I'm like, oh, well, wow, nobody ever like says things like that. You must be an artist. They're like, well, yeah, actually. And then we're like, having this great conversation. Yep. And it's just taught me a lot of good life lessons and how to communicate better with people. Right now I'm reading one called Never Split the Difference. And it's about like the kind of the art of like negotiating, and it's very interesting. So yeah, I have a whole stack. Another one that I love is the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth.
Okay.
And that is John Maxwell. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so yeah, I have a lot of great recommendations, but I would always go back to How to Win Friends and Influence People. And his daughter actually rewrote it too for teen girls, which is super cool. Whoa. And so I go over that book with my girls every year too. So,
no way.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of that one, or is it just the same title?
Yeah, it's just How to Win Friends and Influence People for teen girls.
Huh. Okay. So we'll find and link to that in the show notes. Yeah. Never Split the Difference is Chris Voss. Mm-hmm. And then you said 15, what was the other one?
15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell.
And that's Maxwell. Okay, cool. We'll put all of those in the show notes. By the way, for everybody listening in, we do talk a lot about books here on the podcast, and Haley came up with a great idea. Haley, who produces the show, she's actually put together a list, if you will, of the most popular books here on the podcast in over 400 episodes. If you go to Bokeh, Bokeh, bookshelf.com, you can tap into that list, and it's a really great resource. So make sure you check that out. And then, of course, all these books that we're talking about, you can see in the show notes, bokehpodcast.com, here in this interview with Tracy. Let me go ahead and jump into kind of our main focus for today. And not so ironically, we're actually talking about focus. You run a business mastermind called Focus, which is actually an acronym. We share what that acronym is and why you decided to kind of center the mastermind around that acronym.
Yeah. So it's called the Focus Mastermind, and it's a 10-week program that I built for photographers last year. And we just finished up our third cohort of it. It's super exciting. And the acronym is, so the F is finding your niche. Obviously, from this conversation alone, you can tell that I'm a big believer in that, finding your specialty, your niche, what sets you apart. So that's our whole first part of it is just discovering what that is, what makes you different. Then the O is optimizing your brand. So it's taking all of that and putting it into your brand, creating your powerful words that you'll market with, your kind of, statement, and just creating a really amazing brand that people will love and trust, and that is kind of cohesive, and talking all about that. The C is client acquisition. So that's all your marketing and actually getting the clients, using all this information on your newfound niche and your brand to get the clients. The U is creating an unforgettable client experience, which huge in my book. That's one of the biggest things you can do. So that's helping each photographer come up with their own experience and how they're going to create that for their clients. And then the S is for systems and sales. This is I think an underrated thing that's not talked about enough in the photography industry. Sales, coming up with your pricing, how to sell, and systems that you use to keep your life in check and give you that freedom back and keep everything organized, so you're not a complete disaster running around trying to keep track of everything. Yeah. So that's kind of the process. We work together. It's a mastermind. We do calls every week. Just a small group of photographers holding each other accountable and just giving them that stage and that process that I really would have loved from the beginning, just to create a really fun and impactful and profitable photo business. So it's a blast. I love it. And I'm super proud of kind of what we built and super excited to keep rolling with it. Well,
and Tracy, we'll bring this up one more time at the end of the show as well. It's not very often that I'm like rushing to promote conferences, workshops, or in this case, masterminds, but I have a lot of trust in you and your business and what you've been able to accomplish. Will you just mention really quickly here while we're talking about it, how listeners can find out more about that mastermind?
Yeah. So I do little master classes before each one, and I'm not sure when this will even be out or when the next one is, but if they just shoot me a DM on Instagram, I will send them the updated link to whatever the next cohort is or the next class we're doing to get on a list to get that information. So
Perfect. Okay, cool. So we'll put that in the show notes as well for anybody listening in. You mentioned, though, that the S stands for systems and sales. And some of our regular listeners might not be so surprised that I want to dig into the systems side of the things because, I think we should highlight systems or organization structure.
Definitely.
It's not just for the so-called nerds out there. This is a concept or principles that ultimately enable us to have the freedom, the flexibility that really is an amazing privilege as a business owner. Not everybody gets to capitalize on that, and systems can enable us, or is a big piece of what will enable us to have that freedom, that flexibility. We just kind of start with the three major benefits from your perspective of systems as a photography business owner.
Yeah. So, the main one is just it's time saving. It'll help save you time if you have organization and everything in one place. It's going to give you more sanity and freedom. I think it creates a much better client experience if you can give them an easy system to kind of, pay easier or view their pictures easier. It just creates a better experience for them. Also growing your business and gives you more income just overall because you have more time to do what you love. You keep track of your clients, you take care of them so they don't feel like you're a complete mess. And it's just better all around. So I had to really focus on that in the beginning. And that's why I hired such a awesome studio manager. I would not be here without Steph for sure, because I am not type A. I'm not a perfectionist. My mind is all over the place, and I would have failed a long time ago if I tried to do all the business stuff by myself, because I'm just not, I don't keep track of things very well.
Sure.
And so I hired in my original post, like 10 years ago, I was like, I need someone who's type A, who is very, detail oriented, who is not like me at all, who probably, got good grades and did their chores as a kid, like somebody not like me. And so, found her. She's amazing and keeps it all on track. And then we use systems that really help keep it all in check for both of us. So there's lots of benefits, but those are a few of my fave.
Okay. So let me just kind of dig in each one of these briefly. Time saving, if you were to guess the comparison and contrast of you before systems implemented and you now with systems implemented, of course, thanks to your assistant, whose name is Stephanie, is that right? Or Steph?
Yeah.
Okay.
Steph, yep.
Yeah. Shout out to Steph. But what if you were to compare and contrast the amount of time that it took you to run your business on a weekly basis, what would that comparison look like, do you think?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know. I did hire her from the get-go. So I was only in business for like a year.
Really?
Maybe. Yeah. I from all these conferences we go to, everyone always said, like, hire somebody to do this. And so I did it right from, the get-go ish. And I'd say before that, it's not only time saving, but it was also just like the stress of, what did I do with that order form? What if I need this? Did I file all those pictures correctly? Wait, this person needs access to their pictures. I think I sent them on this link, but now it's like gone. Do I have to re-upload all those? And invoicing. I sent them like PayPal links, I think. I don't even know if they've paid. How do I keep track of all this? Like, I probably lost a lot of money, a lot of time, and most importantly, a lot of my sanity. And so I would say hours and hours of just wasted time and just freaking out about stuff that maybe I lost, or maybe I didn't email them, or maybe I didn't even schedule that, or, all of that stuff. So it has saved a lot of my sanity and time and money getting that into systems and hiring the right people.
Well, if you were to, maybe this again would be kind of a guess, but outside of actually taking pictures, how many hours a week do you think it takes to run your business as it stands now?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. Honestly, it depends on the week. Some week it's 0 hours and some week it's like, 50, 60 hours.
Really?
Okay. Not normally, but sure. Building this mastermind has definitely taken a lot of hours.
Sure.
But once you kind of build it, then it's kind of done. So when I was building that, I feel like I definitely put in plenty of 40-hour work weeks. But I try to not think too much about all the hours and just kind of be with my kids when I can, be working when I can. But I'd say if I had to like guess an average, I don't know, maybe like 30 hours a week ish, like with shooting and all my stuff and, everything. But again, that can go, my husband's probably going to hear this and laugh and be like, okay, some weeks it's 0. Some weeks you literally, I feel like I don't see you. So, but yeah, I try to make it to where I'll just pour in a few days of super hard work. But I work at home a lot. I have an office downstairs. And so even when I am working a lot, I feel like I just can pop out and play with my kids for a bit, or pop up and go eat with them, and then come back. So I try to get that balance in there, and not work too much, but sometimes you have to. And building stuff that I love and creating this mastermind definitely took more hours. So yeah, I guess the answer is I really have no freaking idea. Sometimes it feels like a lot. Sometimes it's little, I don't really keep track. I'm curious now though. I feel like I should start keeping track. You know what? I'll get back to you on that, Nathan.
Brilliant.
Sound good?
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, even if we were to say, by the way, nobody's going to hold you to this, but even if you were to say 20 to 30 hours a week, or just say 30 even, first of all, the fact that you can earn a living not only for yourself but your family within, let's just say, an average of 30 hours a week is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But even if we were to take the time component out, the fact that you have the flexibility to be able to, as you said, put work down and focus on your family when you need to do that, and then go back to your work as you need to do that. The fact that you have that kind of freedom and flexibility, to use those words again, I think is really, really wonderful. You mentioned something though that I think we should touch on just briefly, and you talked about the time investment, more specifically in this educational course and mastermind that you've been putting together. There is a time investment, and as you pointed out, once you have it in place, you've put the time and effort and energy, it's built, it's there, it's in place. Yeah. You can take a step back and things are easier. That holds true when it comes to developing systems as well. I think one of the reasons that photographers don't develop or put systems in place is because they're like, oh my goodness, I don't get that stuff, and I just don't I don't have the time right now. And I hear this in regards to, whether it's delegating editing and setting an account and doing that process, or the idea of maybe organizing your files in your computer, or putting documents in a place that are easily accessible for your accountant, or whatever it might be. I don't have time for that. The reality is it does take a little bit of time investment up front. The payoff in the long run is massive. Can you just speak to that briefly?
Yeah, I think, I totally get that, because I've been there so many times, and it does feel, and I still do it sometimes where I'm like, I really need to set that up and get that going, because it's going to make my life so much easier. But then you get busy and you're like, okay, after today, okay, I have a shoot, and then I have okay, after today, okay, I'll take time next week. Okay. And then it's been 6 months and you're like, I still haven't done that. Yeah. So I would just recommend coming up with a time and putting it on a calendar, and just taking the time to spend however many hours it takes at the beginning to set it up, or hire somebody that knows what they're doing to help set it up for you. If it's a new software or your website, you need to update with, good contact info and whatever for your clients, just take the time and just get it done, even though it sucks at first, because it will be so much more worth it later on. And so I can't speak highly enough about just having those systems in place, because once you do, you'll be like, how did I live so long without this? It's just taking that first step. And same goes for like when I hired Steph for editing. It was such a big deal in the beginning. I was like, oh, I can do it so much faster. Is this really going to help to like teach her all this stuff and take all this time to go over everything? And it's also like, not really a pride thing, but letting somebody in on all that stuff. Like, we kind of are secretive people by nature sometimes. Like, well, she's going to see everything. She's going to see like what I make and what I do and all my faults and how like irresponsible I am sometimes. Like, I can't, I have to like pretend I'm perfect, and like people can't see that. And then you just have to get over that and be like, yeah, everyone's flawed. Yeah, I might not have great systems. That's why I'm hiring her. She can come in and she'll feel good because she's helping me and she's using her skills to like make things better, and that's awesome. So drop the ego and just let it go. And I have to say real quick, from our previous conversation about working, I kind of forgot to throw something really important in there. In Montana, we really only have 4 months to shoot a lot of our portraits. Okay. And because we have crazy weather, like right now it is like 5 freaking degrees outside and covered in snow. Wow. And so I work my butt off in the summer. And so like right now is the worst time to ask me, probably because it's October. I'm getting surgery next week. So I'm having to shove all my work right now. Wow. And it's like, I feel like I'm working nonstop right now. But then come wintertime, we usually take off and like go travel and go crazy and have fun. And I just do marketing stuff. And then I have a lot of months where it's not like that at all. And then I'm like, did I used to work? What is my life right now? This is so chill. And then all of a sudden summer comes back and I'm like, hey, oh, no life. Yep. So that's kind of an important thing that I didn't get into before. It depends on where you live and how much of the year you can shoot, because that makes a big difference.
You mentioned better client experience. Can you give even just one tangible example of how having systems in place have enabled you to give or deliver a better client experience?
Yeah, just giving them that ease of, clicking a button and going and scheduling their stuff, or, clicking to pay, or setting up reoccurring payments if they want to do that and not having to do it on their own, or having a system where they can click on a link and have their own app on their phone with their pictures, and, sending it to friends and family, doing orders online. I mean, so many, just automated emails that they get. So they're always taken care of and they feel like, wow, she's really on it. Like she's, keeping me updated, sending me all this cool stuff. I use Simple Booklet for like creating a client magazine that we send out so they can kind of look through everything, get super prepped for their photo shoot. We send them a survey from SurveyMonkey where they can respond to all these questions so I can get to know them better, so I can create a better client experience for them, asking about just who they are and what they love and what their hobbies are and favorite colors and favorite places they've been, just all kinds of things, all kinds of little systems that help them feel taken care of, that help them feel seen and noticed and loved, and just creating ease, because nobody wants to go in and have to do a million things just to do a payment, or, go mail a contract that you actually sign in person. Like nobody wants to do that anymore. So making it easy and digital and simple has, I feel like, improved the client experience so much in a lot of different ways.
So you mentioned that the idea of systems enables more income as well. I guess similar question to that last one about client experience. How, and maybe this is a bit rhetorical in nature for some, but how do systems enable you to make more money?
Well, I think it comes back to time, because if systems are saving you time is money. You can use that time to really build your business and use your skills to get new clients and to make the experience better and to focus on what you're really good at, which for sure will make you more money in the long run. So I think it comes back to just that time, time is money. So if you're saving time, then you can go do things that you're very talented at and that you love doing. And I think that's going to be more successful all around. You'll feel more peace and you'll make more money.
By the way, I have to say, because you brought up peace again, I love that your focus, a big part of your focus as an entrepreneur is ultimately, or the life that you want to create is just about having peace in the end. I love, it's such a powerful and yet simple notion, but I think it's a really wonderful thing.
Yeah, I think that came from Chalene Johnson too, actually. I can't remember where I heard that, but somebody was like, my idea of success is not anything except for feeling like freedom and peace. And I was like, that's so powerful, because I just started thinking, what's like the emotion that I want to feel the most sometimes? And it's not like, proud or, even happy. It's like there's such a powerful thing about just sitting there and just feeling peace. It's like so rare and so needed though. Yes. And so, feeling peace, not just like peace and calm. Like that's what I used to think of peace. It's like, no, it's just not having a million things that are stressing you out and worrying about money and worrying about balance and your kids and all the chores. And it's just like, I feel peace. Like that's amazing. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I love that.
So that's been a big word for me.
Okay. So we're going to talk briefly here. We've got a few minutes left. We're going to talk briefly about software, because a lot of what enables us in 2020 to be able to implement systems efficiently and fortunately at relatively little cost is software. Before we get into how you choose the software that you use for your systems, just really briefly, can you comment on kind of the primary areas of your business, whether it's communication or financial management or otherwise, that you have implemented systems in order to run your business more efficiently?
Yeah. Client galleries and contracts, invoicing, making that really simple, because we have a lot of people split up payments and things like that. So keeping that simple and in check so we can account for that. And just having everything in one place. Also, like the surveys we send out and the welcome packets, things like that are really important for us to get to know them and to help them get to know us. But just keeping everything in check as far as client galleries, invoicing, all that it's such a game changer for both of us on both ends. So
I wrote down here, galleries, contracts, invoicing, surveys, which we could probably lump into communication in general. Probably you've got a great system in place. You mentioned earlier the automation of communication. So just communication in general. Okay. So with that in mind, there's so many, and I alluded to this earlier, actually, when it came to choosing a task and project management software, there's so many options out there for us as business owners to be able to more efficiently run our businesses. What are the criteria that you keep in mind when you're going to even make a decision about what software to use?
I would say a lot of my choices are made based on other people's experiences too, because I trust trust my friends.
Sure.
I trust people that, seem to have great businesses and know what they're doing. So I would say like a good reputation and hearing about it from friends or, word of mouth somehow.
Okay.
I've found a lot of people I use and software I use just based on meeting people, like even at these conferences, like you, for instance, I heard about you because you still run an awesome business, and I heard about that a lot, from different conferences. As far as who we use for like client galleries and things like that, I met a crew at another conference, and they were just super cool and fun, and heard so many good things, and loved that they were like relationship based, and started using them because I just heard so many good things. It's really important for us to have it be easy for clients to use, more importantly than having it be easy for us, because I think sometimes the good ones are hard to set up at first, and they can't always be easy because it's a lot of work. So
sure.
People are like, well, if it's not super easy, it's like, it's not gonna be, because you have to put your colors, your logo, all your wording, your pricing, your everything. So it's gonna be hard in the beginning, but as long as it's doable, and then more importantly easy for the clients, then that's a really big thing. And then ultimately we want it to save us time and give us less overwhelm, which in turn creates more income. So those are the main things that we look for while choosing something. But a lot of times it's just like, hey, this is awesome, I use it. And I'm like, sweet, send me a link. And that's it. I'm not going to go do all this research. But in thinking about it, the big ones, I feel like that's what we definitely look for, is just having a good reputation and having good reviews. And that's about it. And then if it works for us, awesome. If not, we'll move on and try something else.
I don't think I've heard any photographer that I've had on this show in the 450 episodes or whatever talk about the significance of ease of use for clients, because we do tend, and you alluded to this earlier, we have a tendency of kind of, whether it's conscious or subconscious, doing things for ourselves as photographers. And that's important to a point as well. But we do have to keep in mind that there is an end client that we're serving. They're the ones that pay the bills. We've got to make things as easy as possible for them.
Exactly.
That's really, really important. Okay. So then talk to me about what you would say would be the most important pieces of software that you use to manage these systems that you alluded to in your business.
Like specific software?
Let's just go ahead and list them, because I'd be curious to hear it for our listeners' sake too.
Yeah, we use Shoeproof for our client galleries and contracts, and they do all kinds of stuff. I honestly don't know everything else they do because Steph runs all that. But I know that we do all of our client galleries that way. And that makes it super easy because they love just the quick download link that they can access, send it to anybody they want. We used to do like CDs back in the day, then flash drives,
CDs.
Right? RIP CDs. And now it's just like, you're going to lose all that stuff anyways. And a lot of it's outdated. So here's a link. You can download as many times as you want, send it to whoever, you'll never lose it. So that makes it really easy for them. They love that. They can also create little apps, and all the teen girls love that, and their parents are obsessed with showing off their pics, so they want it on their phone. So that makes it really easy for keeping track of all that. And then we can see what they access in that gallery and what they've like chosen as their favorites. So if people are like, if they get 12 digital prints or something in a collection, they can, most of the time I do that in person, but if I can't, it's online. And so I can see what they've marked so that we know what to do. So that keeps it really simple for that. We also use Simple Booklet for our magazine that we send out to clients. We use SurveyMonkey for surveys that we send to all of our clients to get to know them. We use Dropbox a lot just for everything in life. That's
everything,
always a good classic one. I think that's like the majority of it. I mean, Steph uses Google for everything, like for keeping track of just like our timeline with clients. She's created, that's like how her brain works. She does so good with like spreadsheets and everything. So we also have obviously Shoeproof, and we use Square for invoicing. And so that keeps track of invoices and payments, but she likes to have a visual, and so do I, where it's all of our clients, all of their contact info, their timeline. So we have like a whole timeline of, inquiry, booked, paid, session done, active images, sent off images, edited, ordering session scheduled, ordering session done, everything, so that we can kind of, and then it's like color coded, so we know how far along we are in the process.
Wow.
And I know there's systems that do that, but for us, Google is just so easy, and she's just really good at that. So yeah, we use a ton of Google spreadsheets, and those are, I think, the main ones. As far as emails, she just has, email saved as templates just to send out to people, and everything else is, I think Shoeproof, and pretty much that's it.
Yeah, I'm actually pulled up Shootproof, and I've spent a little bit of time there at their offices. Really solid company, and they've continued to grow that company, and the services that they offer have increased as well. And on the homepage of their site, it says, "We make it easy to start, grow, and manage your business with beautiful galleries, contracts, and invoices." Yep. And so it looks like it's kind of not necessarily a one-stop shop. There are other things that have to be incorporated in our business, but it's nice when you can lump as many of those things into one place as possible.
Definitely. And I've heard good things about like HoneyBook, Shootproof. There's others that do similar things. That's just what's worked best for us. And I really loved how they, tried to build that relationship in the beginning. And I got to meet a lot of them. And I was just like, you guys are just really nice and you're taking care of people. And so I want to give you my business. So, and we also use Kajabi now, like for my Mastermind stuff and for sending out newsletters, emails, things like that. Kajabi has been a really cool resource that I'm just probably getting my toes wet on, but so many cool opportunities for, online courses and emails, things like that. Kajabi is a huge resource.
And what is Kajabi if you were to sum it up, because I'm actually not familiar with the platform.
No? Oh, it's awesome. So it's basically for any like content creator, course creator.
Okay.
But it can be even more than that. Like you can just set up a main website. And so even if you are, you could probably use it even as a photographer in other businesses, you can send out, emails, keep track of everybody, add people to an email list. So you can create simple landing pages, which I do for my photography business and my coaching business, where it's like, here's a freebie. You want it? Give me your email. And then, it automatically emails them that freebie and gets them on a list. And so if you have announcements or photo shoots coming up or, my mastermind stuff, you can just use that list. So it's like a whole, email list, plus having a cool website, designing landing pages. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. Wow. I probably haven't even touched half of what they do, but, and they connect with like a lot of other businesses or a lot of other softwares like MailChimp and things like that to make it super cohesive and easy for people to use. So yeah, that's a really cool one too.
Cool. Yeah, we'll link to that as well as the other resources that we mentioned. Kajabi, on their site, it says you can access your website, products, marketing, community, and more from a single dashboard. And since everything is built together, it just works together better. That's interesting. Okay, well, I'll have to take a look at it myself.
Super cool. Yeah, for sure. It's a good one. There's so many out there. Like you said, there's no one-stop shop. Find out what works best for you. And ultimately just, I think my advice to everybody would be find your niche, find your specialty, and then start delegating one thing at a time so that you can actually live this life and not just drown in work and stress all the time. I think that's the ultimate goal, just to be there for people you love. Life is so short and we get so caught up in all this craziness and all this work and looking cool and, promoting this certain stuff. But ultimately, like, nobody knows your life like you do. And you got to create the life you want and the life that's going to make you and your family and friends happy.
Beautifully summed up. Remind our listeners, if you will, Tracy, where they can find you and learn more about your brand and ultimately DM you if they're curious about your mastermind as well.
Yeah, for sure. So on IG, it's just Tracy Moore Photo, TracyMoore photo. And we're in the process of redoing some of our mastermind website. That's why I'm hesitant to send it out because it might change. So just DM me on Instagram and let me know what you're interested in as far as mastermind. Or if you have any questions about anything I talked about, I love chatting with people and starting up conversations in there. So shoot me a message and I will answer away and help you with whatever you need. Because I know it can be a lot, but you don't have to do it alone.
And so true. TracyMoorePhotography.com. We'll also link to her site there in the show notes, BokehPodcast.com for everybody listening in. Thanks once again, Tracy, for hanging out with all of us today.
Oh, I'm honored you had me on your show. You're amazing. Keep it up. I love following you, and I'm very honored that you had me on.
Thanks so much, photographers, for listening to the Bokeh Podcast. Will you let us know what you thought of the show by leaving a review of the podcast in the Apple Podcast app? And I'd love to hear from you personally with your thoughts about the podcast and suggestions about future topics and guests for the show. My email is nathan@bokehpodcast.com. Make sure to visit our sponsors, photographersedit.com, custom photo editing for the professional photographer, and miilu.com, that's miilu.com, the simplest way to create and manage timelines and shot lists for the events you're photographing.